Welcome to Negotiation with Alice, your negotiation podcast. Everything that you do where you need to get on the same page with someone else is a negotiation. So whether you have to negotiate a contract with someone, or you simply need your boss to sign off on that program that you'd like to implement, or you want to figure out how to rebalance the chore structure in your home, or talk about what vacation you want to go on. All of these things are negotiations. So in my podcast, we go over both personal and professional conversations, which all are considered negotiation, and I will give you tips on how to come out ahead. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of Negotiation with Alice. Today, I've got James Cook with us here today, and he and I are going to talk about something very, very interesting that I think most of you will really resonate with, because it's a lot to do with what's happening in the world today. So welcome, James.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So James is a litigator, and he lives part of his time in Oakland, California, and part of his time in Minneapolis. And he's become quite well known in the news because a lot of his cases are hitting national news. So if you want to sort of talk briefly about what's going on with these cases, James, and then I'll sort of introduce why we're here today talking about what's going on with these phone calls. But if you want to give some background on the work that you're doing out in Minneapolis, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, so I'm one of the people, my firm, in conjunction with other partner lawyers, we have launched, or we filed a class action suit against ICE, Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. And this is all related to the Minneapolis Metro surge that you might have heard about in the beginning of the year, beginning of 2026, when ICE agents in Minneapolis started arresting people of mostly Latino descent, but also Somali, pretty much anybody that's black or brown, and processing them for deportation. As a result of many of those machinations, there was two, high-profile deaths. One was Renee Good. She was shot short distance from where I am in Minneapolis right now. And the same thing with the gentleman named Alex Preddy. He was also killed short distance over on East Street on Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis. So as a result of that, in terms of we filed the class action on behalf of multiple classes of people. The main class would include people that have been detained and processed for detention while they have status paperwork pending, and most of them were released. And in the process of being detained, they were held for long periods of time, weeks, sometimes months. They were beaten, or they were neglected while they are in custody. And again, these are people that have a 14th Amendment right to be in the country. The second category are demonstrators, people that have demonstrated against ICE and Metro Surge, and that have been arrested, and ultimately released and then exonerated for being arrested. And then the final category would be the ICE monitors. These are people that constitutional monitors that follow the ICE trucks. The ICE, they roll through our neighborhoods in a column, uh, and they sweep people up, and there are people who follow them and watch them and warn people, letting them know. Final category are people that were arrested as a result of a church protest. This made national news because a famous talk show host, Don Lemon, was arrested, formerly talk show host for CNN, and also Georgia Ford, another journalist. But there are, 30, 40 people swept up in that, and a lot of their cases have been dismissed. So in all of this, the thing that got me to the point where I started being doxxed. And when I say doxxed, meaning relentless calls from people that disagree with what I'm doing. One of the people that, or there was a family that was demonstrating at the Whipple building, where most of the things take place in Minneapolis, where most of the demonstrations take place. There was a reporter by the name of Savannah Hernandez. She's with Turning Point USA. She's also a Fox News personality. So she was protesting. Basically, a scuffle ensued between her and my client, Paige Ostrusko. They got into it. Um, and ultimately, you see on camera where her father comes up and pushes the reporter to the ground. So uh, recently, as of today or yesterday, indictments were handed down for the whole family by the Department of Justice, and also one indictment by the Hennepin County attorney. That's Hennepin County, Minneapolis. So, in the course of all this happening over the last few weeks unfolding, I've been relentlessly doxxed, meaning called, harassed by people that disagree with, of course, the Ostrusko family, but also, this tends to create a political divide because Savannah Hernandez is a well-known talk show host for Turning Point USA, which is a very conservative station that, I think it was maybe even founded by President Trump. And along with OAN News, I think there's some involvement with him, but also well-known Fox News TV show host. So as a result of this, yeah, she was pushed, and so it's become a political issue. So constant calls, and what's happening is what I'm finding out is that these guys call. A lot of people call, and they call up and they're really angry. Why would you represent these people? And why would you do this? And then what happens is after I talk to him, I'm actually able to get him to calm down, and some of them actually come to my side a lot. Pretty much all of them have offered to put me up if I come visit them, that type of thing, and just from talking to them.
Yeah, so this is really interesting, and I want to focus on these particular calls. Even though the work that you're doing is really fascinating, we can probably dive deep into that and talk a while about that. I want to focus little bit on the phone calls because we are in an age right now where people who are on opposite sides of the political divide are unable to talk to one another because they're just getting too hyped up. Like you mentioned, when people are calling you, they're really angry. And so I really just wanted to talk about what are some of the strategies that you're employing? How do you get them to calm down? What do you first say to them when they're calling you and they're raging and probably trying to maybe rage bait you at the very beginning of the conversation when they first call you?
Yeah, I mean, so strategies. I never really thought about strategies. I mean, they call me up and I just talk to them like I'm talking to one of my friends. Like you got to understand where I'm coming from. I'm a guy. I'm 57 years old, Gen X. So I probably fit snugly into that category where they talk about bros. I've been told that I'm like a bro, and I would agree with that to a certain extent. So I'm able to I just talk to them like that, really. You know, and really, so where I grew up in Minneapolis, big group of friends, South Minneapolis, and we're all still very dear friends, like from elementary school, literally. We used to travel around in big, huge packs of guys, of boys, teenage, pre-teenage boys, and just, you know, we were inseparable, right? So it's still kind of the same. Well, as we got older, everybody's got diverging points of view. So literally, even as like teenagers and young adults, when the diverging points of view, like for instance, I remember very specific uh, arguments where we'd all be sitting around, like say a campfire somewhere, or after skateboarding having beers, and one of my friends is really super conservative, and his other friends super liberal, and there'd literally be fist fights. We'd beat the shit out of each other, and then hey man, use this beer to like take the swelling off your eye and sit down and keep talking. So I'm still friends with all those guys, and we still have those heated arguments. And so I just talk to the guys the same way. Like I'm thinking of a very specific friend who always calls me up a little bit tipsy, like, "What the hell are you doing? Why would you do that?" And I talk to that guy. Let's call him Chris, for lack of a better, you know, let's just say his name is Chris. And I just talk to Chris like, bro, what are you saying? Like, come on, let's look at this logically. So I have those conversations with those guys. I mean, I tell them, like there's one in specifically where the guy called me up. He's from Texas. He's got that really deep Southern accent, like called up and he's just like, I know you're representing these people and they're paid Antifa. And he's just going on like he's, as soon as I pick up, he starts in on me. And I'm like, bro, come on, calm down. Listen, here's the deal. And then, it really depends on the conversation and the way it's going. But typically with these guys that often have preconceived notions based on probably watching like Fox News or reading tweets and that type of thing. They got a preconceived notion. The thing that usually gets to them is I just say, okay, but let's like hear me out on this, right? You believe in the Constitution? Yeah, of course. And then I start explaining, the Bill of Rights and 14th Amendment and how it kind of applies to both sides. And they tend to really like that because they all fancy themselves constitutional scholars, right? Because if you listen to certain shows, that's what they do. If you ever listen to Rush Limbaugh, he would always do that and kind of like, Andy, whatchamacallit, Savage. They all get into that. And so when you start talking to them about it, they have to agree on a lot of points. So we get that. And then, especially with the Ostrusko family, the fact that Chris pushed Sabrina Hernandez that, do you got kids? Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, man, like something happened like that with me once before with my daughters, and I beat the shit out of the guy. Like, no matter what happens with anybody, if anybody messes with my kids, I'm probably going to, get involved in a violent way, kind of no matter what, because, it's my kids. And I get a lot of agreement with that. So, once we get on the same level, it's kind of like things calm down and then we start talking. And then we always get into conversations about like personal life and hey man, so what do you do for a living? They always tell me and then it gets into, they ask me like, well, what is it, day to day to do what you do? And I tell them and then I don't know, we talk about sports. I love the Vikings. I bleed purple from Minnesota Timberwolves and they're from the South. So it's usually like the Cowboys, Dak Prescott and or like Tennessee Titans or something like that, and we get into that, and then stuff about kids and where they went to school. By the end of the call, a lot of these guys are like, "Hey, man, like you seem like a pretty cool guy. Like I don't agree with everything you say, but if you ever want to come and visit me, I own a bar or I have this, and we could have some beers." And it's just the same thing, like the guys that I grew up with. Every guy who's watching this knows exactly what I'm talking about. Guys, your best friends, you've probably been in multiple fist fights with them. And it's probably the best thing because that's why you're best friends. Because you can settle your differences violently. You won't kill each other. You get the shit off your chest. And then, you get back to talking about it and just have your differences and agree to disagree. And in some ways, a lot of times you start agreeing with each other just on the DL, you aren't going to admit it, but that's the way it works with bros. And so these guys typically are my age and they've been through this and they are bros. So I think that's my strategy. I don't really know.
So it sounds like just from a negotiation perspective that you first find common ground, just maybe on a very superficial level, and then you go a little bit deeper, right? In terms of when we talk about, you start talking about the Constitution and making sure you're on the same page. And for my listeners who are trying to figure out like ways to engage with someone who is not in agreement with you or is on the other political side, to be able to say, okay, let's just find where do we agree, right? Like, do we agree on the Constitution? And you go through it and they say, yes, yes. So then there's that. Then it sounds like you move on to more personal common ground, right? Like, do you have kids? Or wouldn't you feel this way if somebody like pushed your kid? Or you talk about what it would happen if it was you personally, right? Is that sort of like what you're doing? You're constantly trying to find some common ground with this other person who's calling you up and being really upset because they feel like you're so diametrically opposed to them. Is that sort of like what you're doing?
I mean, yeah, you're summing it up like I'm doing it in a methodical way, but honestly, I'm not really. It's not so linear. It's almost like you know, it's like we're sitting in a bar without drinks, and this is the conversation that takes place. Or when I was a teenager or a young adult, and we're sitting around a keg, or my group used to drink at the train tracks under the Hennepin Avenue Bridge, uptown Minneapolis, and like throw you know glass bottles at the trains and slam beer cans on our head. But those, I mean, that I think that's my skill is that beer drinking bro skateboarder skill is like we talk, I mean, we always disagree about everything. And that's the beauty of it. Like the best thing, your best friends, like, there's no common ground. The common ground is that you're just friends, no matter what. You're loyal to each other. The common ground with these guys probably maybe underlying is like we're the same age, same generation, Gen X, you know, regardless of our race, even class status, we were all latchkey kids. No matter if you're Gen X, right? Your parents were probably working. Probably the first set of people that seemed like a big deal. People were probably divorced, but you had to kind of make shit happen for yourself, entertain yourself. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, I guess like you're saying, there's common ground, but really it just comes down to like a conversation. And, you know, uh, guys in our age group always disagree about one thing, and that's friggin' sports. And we passionately disagree. And guess what, though? We love each other because we're all sports fans, and you got somebody to constantly argue with. And I think that's what's going on with a lot of these guys. We constantly have something to argue with, and they know I'm not really going to fucking judge them. I will disagree with them, and I'll disagree with them vehemently, but no judgment. We just disagree. And I let him know, like, look, man, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect by any means. I mean, if people are watching this video, you're looking at me saying he's definitely not perfect by any means. But I'm not perfect by any means, and I don't think I am. And I don't profess to be. And I like to lean into those imperfections. And I tell those dudes about that. Like, look, dude, I shouldn't have beat the shit out of the person who approached my kids. Probably wasn't the right thing to do. And when the cops called me, it was not the right thing to do. And the fact that I did it like 2 or 3 times, those are imperfections, but I'm working on it. I'm working on my imperfections. So, and I think that they see that. They're like, yeah, I guess you're right, man. So, yeah, you're kind of right. And then, yeah, like you said, sports brings everybody together. Yeah, they may not like football, maybe they like baseball, but or other current events. I'm a current events guy all the way. I always got something to talk about with everybody. I love that shit. I'm from the '80s. I loved '80s commercialism. I didn't realize that I did, but '80s just pop culture. I eat that shit up. And so yeah, I got something to talk about with everybody, especially when it comes to sports and or politics. And I think people should talk about it all the time, just like that. But we're bros. I mean, that's why Joe Rogan is so popular, because he is just like me in a lot of ways.
And then, I heard you saying something a little bit ago where you start to ask personal questions, like questions about maybe what, what it is that they do for work or what their family like is like for, specific things. Do you want to give examples of sort of what type of personal questions you end up asking as you start to build that rapport?
Yeah, I mean, I think it organically goes into that. You know what I mean? Like always, it's just like we've been talking, arguing politics for like 5 minutes, and then it's like, well, so what do you do for a living? And then you start, I did. Oh, really? What's that mean? Like, what the hell does, like, what does a inspections engineer do, or what, Oh yeah, you're a one guy was he was a pilot, right? Like in the Bible, Pontius Pilate, he was the guy that brings the ships into the harbor, and you have to know the harbor really well, and just you learn all this really fucking interesting shit about people. One guy, like I said, a couple guys bar owners, you know one dude, he served in the military, like like 3 different wars, over multiple decades. And you just, I don't know. Yeah. I mean, and I'm always curious. I'm one of those guys that walks down the street and just talks to everybody. And that tends to annoy people uh, that are really close to me. But I don't know. I guess I'm just curious. So that question always comes up. And then, they ask me like, so what's it like for being a lawyer? Then they, we get into, oh, what would you, for law school, telling them yeah, I was an MMA fighter. I was a writer. I actually did software programming for, a couple days, like a decade and a half. Like, so we go through that. We end up just telling each other our autobiographies. And I think, and feel ultimately after we have those conversations, we feel comfortable with each other. So I don't know that it's an attempt to always. I'm not really. I don't feel like I'm convincing, but somehow it does because of the common ground. And again, sports. I think for me, like sports, I'm really comfortable talking about that. Um, in any pop culture thing. I mean, one guy. I mean, we were talking about old TV shows, like from our era, Brady Bunch and Gilligan's Island, and I don't even know how we got on that conversation, but the one thing that we both agreed was that Lillian Munster was hot.
So I have a question though. So first they call you up and they're upset about whatever they're upset about. And then eventually you build rapport, right? So, and then you kind of touched on this because you said, I'm not really sure that I ever convinced them. So my question really is, by the end of the conversation, I understand you've built rapport. They have a stronger affinity for you than they did when they initially called you. But just for my listeners to sort of understand the dynamics of when you are having these kind of conversations, is it more that there's just a deeper understanding of each other's side, not necessarily that people are changing their minds about their initial beliefs? Or do you feel like there are people whom you talk with who actually change their point of view based on the conversations? Or is it more like, okay, we have a lot more similarities than we have differences, so let's just go ahead and focus on the similarities?
It's a mixture of both. Like some people have been like, yeah, you know what, you've made some good points that I've really got to reconsider. And a lot of times, and I'm like, yeah, man. I mean, I can't argue with you on those points. So I acknowledge that. So there's that. Like maybe we're actually convinced people, but I think it's more just. I think I think it's more that we we can agree to disagree, and really like I don't think they feel judged by me for the disagreement, and I think like a lot of people really want people to change their mind, but but it's not about that for me. It's I mean the beauty is that everybody fucking disagrees, otherwise we'd have nothing to fucking talk about, and there's no. I really don't want people to just disagree or agree with me. Just the fact that we disagree about everything is what makes it all beautiful to me. And I think those guys think that too. And they're like, oh yeah, I could be fucking friend. Like if this dude lived in my town, I could be friends with this guy and we could meet at the bar every day and fucking have a passionate discussion about stuff. Right. And that is the essence of a Gen X guy is that this was before cell phones and TVs, and we had to just hang out, like, and do stuff, and that was the fun of it. Like, just sit around. Like I always say, like like the brothers, right? Like I'm talking about black guys culture, sit around and talk shit, but that's part of the deal. Like, you've heard about it, like playing the dozens. I mean, they've made whole programs out of it, including black Def Jam comedy, the Def Jam comedy hour, where it was all black comedians, starting with Chris Rock. When he, it's a lot of self-deprecating humor, and brothers like sitting around talking shit about other black people and our fault and the stereotypes, and that shit is fucking funny, right? And black dudes, like, we just do that. Like that's just a natural thing, and that's like maybe one cultural difference is you do that, and I mean, yeah, of course, like people take stuff personal, but not really. It doesn't ruin friendships and all that kind of thing. So it's just one of those things. If you're a bro, that's that's what it is. You got to sit around and take the good with the bad and take the criticism, and it's funny. You got to acknowledge that it's humorous and it passes the time. And I think that's what permeated throughout Gen X. Like by the time I was, probably graduating from high school, even the white dudes were playing the dozens. So it made it even funner. You got more. Nobody was taking it fucking personally, right? I mean, in fact, I remember we sat closer in class so that we could do this like before class starts, so we could get it all in, and that's the point, and I think that's the essence of what's going on now. I'm not a woman, and I'm not a girl. I didn't grow up as a girl, Gen X. I would imagine that there's some of that, but then again, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, as you see, it's created entire entertainment industries, like guys just sitting around, and again, Joe Rogan. Like honestly, as much as I disagree with, say, JD Vance or uh, Cash Patel, those guys are the same age group. Like I would be hanging out with those dudes for real. Like those are guys that I would hang like Cash Patel. I don't think it's that bad that he partied with the fucking Olympic team. Shit, I would have too if I had the opportunity. I don't blame him. Um, JD Vance's hot wife. Yeah, man. You can tell like he's a Gen X dude. Yeah, politics suck according to me, but I mean, okay, but these are guys that I know that we could hang out and just basically talk shit, which is what guys do.
Now that brings me to another point. So I know that you've so far been talking about the calls where generally you can find some common ground because these are Gen X guys. But I'm sure you've had conversations with women, with people who are not Gen Xers. And so
Yeah,
do you pretty much follow the same script in terms of trying to find some commonality with them in order to get them to calm down and sort of just have a normal conversation with you?
yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know if you can hear me, but it's the same approach. I mean, I just take the same approach and it works out the same way. And I think that even the people that don't have, and I'm just saying my approach, I guess, is rooted in that, and again, I don't know if I'm doing anything methodically, but I guess when you think about it, it is kind of the same method for the madness. So yeah, yeah, definitely had conversations with women, um, and people that aren't of the same generation, clearly older or younger, but the people that tend to call tend to be in the age range because those are the guys, and younger people, somewhat in the millennial range. But yeah, it always turns out the same. I think, you know, because I
So
think ultimately they know I'm not judging them, and we're just, yeah, hey man, we're disagreeing, but we could hang out sometime too.
I think that is a really critical point that you made, which is that you show without judging them, right? And I think that the mistake that most people make is when they show up to have a conversation with let's just say family members, let's just say Thanksgiving, right? Holidays are always stressful if people are going to see their families and they know that someone is on the other side of the aisle. There's judgment already from the minute they walk in the door. And so I'm sure that you showing up being curious changes the dynamic tremendously if you show up without that judgment. Would you say that?
Yeah, I mean, well, the Cook family dinners, always just immediately devolves into talking shit and very violent confrontations about shit that happened like over decades, right? I mean, yeah. So, but it's also kind of funny too. I mean, it's almost like a drive-by over a piece of chicken. So, that's black folks, man. That's how we roll. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Like if people don't take it personally, I mean, with the family, you tend to take it all personal and shit. I know I do, but then, you know, I got my barbs to come back with too. So, yeah, that's the black family. But yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. If you can, if you can demonstrate or see to it that you're not really judging people, I think you're more likely to find common ground and maybe even convince some people to think about it, even though they may not admit it, but they will, eventually, and they'll definitely be thinking about it.
So I'm curious about when you go into these conversations, is your goal, hey, let's just find common ground with this person who is super angry with me? Or is your goal, let me see if I can get them to some kind of an agreement, or both of us to get to some kind of an agreement of our understanding? Or is it not that at all and just saying, hey, let me just try to like see this person for who they are, understand who they are, and leave it at that? What's typically the goal of the conversation?
I mean, it's a combination of all, but really mostly the latter. I just, you know, if you know me, I'm going to talk to everybody. When I started this ice thing, I would get calls late into the night. I answer every call. I call everybody back, and I talk to everybody. And I'll just talk to people again. If you know me, I guess apparently, one characteristic about me is I just talk to everybody, and yeah, I just talk to people, and that's it. That's all I'm really doing, and hearing what they have to say.
That's fantastic. James, do you have any last piece of advice for people who are struggling with their own friends or family, trying to bridge that divide and trying to talk with someone else who does not agree with them? What are the last words of wisdom for them so that they can get to a place where you usually get to in a short amount of time?
I mean, if you can see it, like don't take it personally, right? You really can't take it personally. Like you just gotta let that go. I mean, in relationships, try to bring some levity to it, sense of humor, uh, and really lean into it. Right, the disagreements. I think that's most important part. Like lean into it and just like admit, hey, and then you know, I think like as an attorney, part of what you got to do is you got to see every single side of the issue, like whether you want to or not. Like being an advocate, you don't. You just you promote the one side, but really there's five different sides to every issue, five angles at least. If you don't see them and you can't conceive of them, just no matter what, then you're not doing your job as an attorney or in whatever profession which involves like critical thinking like that. So you gotta do that. So especially with your family members, you gotta try to see multiple. So it's harder with the family because it's like there's so much emotion and past
Right.
wrapped up into it, but you still gotta give it a shot. But really, like if you're one of those people that's really passionate about your point of view and you really think that you are right about everything, then you gotta, you know, I mean, I would say, hey, you gotta start with yourself. Uh, and really it doesn't matter if people don't agree. I think it's great, man, when people don't agree. Like I hope that people don't agree and but because of that we can still hang out and just really those disagreements that you use that shit to pass the time because you can sit there and argue about it and fuck look stuff up on Google and just and go back and forth and it makes things fun, make a long road trip fun, long plane ride, uh pillow talk, family dinners at the table where everybody's getting crazy. So it's good. I mean, do like a black family, like lean into that shit, play the dozens, like have the insults ready, have them written down. Oh, I was gonna say, I went to Howard University, historically black college. I was on the swim team. Everybody loved the bus ride, the van ride to the next meet because shit talking like we knew the shit. And one, there's like two really funny guys, right? Like one dude, he's from Atlanta. His name is Mike, for lack of a better word. Dude named Dexter from Jamaica, right? And they would start off going at each other, then it just go around the van, like talking about your clothes, who you dated, or the fact, like me, you couldn't get any dates, how big your dick is, or how big it's not, or, just anything under the sun, like, and it was the funniest shit ever. And we still get together and we're just like, yeah, those bus trips were epic, man. And it was like that like in soccer too, man. I played on, one of those traveling soccer clubs. Just, that's the part that you love, man, about being on a team is really like the locker room shit talking and like going. I mean, that made my time at school and some of those family things I can think about, like over in East Oakland at my granny's house on 64th and Arthur. The major fucking shit talking was just like, it's so funny. And you watch the movies, you see black people, they start talking shit, they fall out on the floor. That's true. That happened. The van ride at the Thanksgiving table, you get the most funniest memories. So lean into it.
I love that, you talk about self-deprecation. So be self-deprecating, use humor, and come with an open mind, right?
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. Yeah.
Awesome.
Do it in
So
your
James,
relationships too.
we're out of time today, but James, if someone needs your services, if they get caught up in the whole ICE detention or really any other thing, how can they reach you?
Yeah, or if you just want to call me and talk about shit, just talk shit. Tell me to get a new pair of glasses, brush my teeth. Like seriously, you can call me anytime. Seriously. My number is 415-350-3393. Again, 415-350-3393. And I would be insulted if you are watching this video and you did not call me to talk shit. Because your mother's so black that when she goes outside at night, you can only see her if she opens her eyes. Your mama's so fat that when she wore a Malcolm X t-shirt, helicopters landed on her back.
You're so bad. All right. Thank you, James.
415-350-3393. I'm black.
All right. You heard it from James. Give him a call. You can talk shit with him and ask him about his political views. So thanks again for being here, James. Thank you, listeners, for being with us on another episode of Negotiation with Alice. Until next time.
Later.